Welcome to the online lectures for information security. In today's class, we'll be beginning with the next unit, planning for security. Beginning with the chapter, the introduction to the chapter is the first point is the creation of information security program begins with the creation or the review of the organization's information security policies, standards, and practices. Now, whenever you're creating an information security program, as the chapter is planning for security, so whenever you're making an information security program, how you're going to secure the software, it is going to be focused on these three things. That is your policies, what are the different standards, and what are these practices. Now, policies, you can say that they are a set of rules that are made by the organization are going to make the set of rules and they need to be followed by all your employees. And you're going to have standards. Standards are going to be a guide for your policies and different practices. That is how you're going to implement these policies. That is going to be shown by this information security program. When you have all of this, it becomes easy for you to design an information security program. Now the next point is then selection or creation of information security architecture and the development and the use of detailed information security blueprint, they create the plan for a future success. So here we know that what different things that need to be followed for the implementation of the information security program. Here the selection, whenever you're selecting a security policy or whenever you're creating information security architecture, for that thing you need to have a detailed information security blueprint. That is, you need to know where different securities are implemented, what modules are safe, where the risk is more. You need to have all this risk assessment done so that you can implement security. That is why we have first studied what is risk identification, how you're going to assess the risk, how you're going to resolve how you're going to reduce the impact of risk. That is being studied within the previous chapter. So you need to have this detailed blueprint of your entire information security. So when you have the detailed print of all the information security, that what are the different controls that are implemented, what are the different controls that can be implemented, when you have all of this, it becomes easy for the organization to make a plan where you need to focus upon more security, where there is huge loss of risk, which information is more confidential, that need to be protected, um, that has got more asset value. Based upon that, you're going to identify which is the best policy that need to be selected and where they need to be strictly implemented. The next point is without policy, without blueprints and planning. So these are three things where when you do not have a policy, that is what are the different rules that you need to follow, the entire blueprint, and without a plan, the organization will be unable to meet information security needs to the various communities of interest. So when there is a lack of these three things, it is going to be difficult, or the entire organization will not be able to provide information security to the different communities of interest. Now, the different communities of interest are the different employees that are there within your organization. So this is the introduction for the planning for security. Now we'll be moving on to the information security policy, standards, and practices. Now, the different communities of interest. What are the different communities of interest? These communities of interest, they can be the general staff, or it can be the information technology people, or the information security people. So different roles that you've got within your organization, like your general staff, your information technology people, or the information security people, these are your different communities of interest. So these communities of interest, they should consider policy as your basis for information security effort. But as if suppose the organization has made a set of policies that need to be followed, they've got so and so number of policies, but if these people, these different communities of interest, these people are only not thinking that these policies are important, then the role of your entire information security, there is no use of implementing it. So it is important that all the communities of interest, they need to consider the policy as the basis of your effort. That is, having policies and implementing them, this is your basic step. Then next point is policies direct how issues should be addressed and technologies should be used. So what is a policy? Policy is going to tell you how an issue should be addressed. That is, you are going to have different policies. These policies, where they need to be implemented and where they need to be used, that is told by a policy. Whereas a policy is not going to tell you this is what the policy does. And what the policy doesn't do is that the policy, it is not going to tell you what is the operation of the particular software or an equipment. It is not going to tell you this. Whereas what is the operation of the software, this needs to be placed within a standard. As in the beginning of the chapter, I've told you that policies are governed by standards, or you can also have them within the procedures or user manuals or system manuals. You can have them within this. The next point is policy should never contradict law. If suppose the law states so and so, that if suppose the taxes need to be paid on time, so your policy should not be that you can delay the taxes. So that policy, it should never contradict law. It should be in favor of the law. Whatever the law is stating, your policy should also follow the same thing. The next point is security policies are the least expensive control, because writing a set of rules, it is not going to cost you a lot of money. So these are the least expensive control to execute, but most difficult to implement. That is, making a set of policies, it is not going to cost you money. A few papers might be so that you can print it and post them out, but it is difficult to implement properly, because when you have got the different communities of interest, all these communities of interest, they need to follow all of your policies. That is, making is easy, but following them is difficult. Now these security policies, shaping a policy is difficult. That is, whenever you're planning this policy, whenever you're making this policy, it becomes difficult. Why shaping the policy is difficult is that shaping the policy is difficult because first point is that it should never contradict law. It should be in favor of the law, and it should never contradict with the laws, so that it should be able to stand up in court. Now, if suppose your policy is not in favor with the law, the first point is that your policy is going to be thrown out. It should stand up in court whenever you're being challenged. Then the next point is it should be properly administered. That is, how you have implemented the policy, whether the people are following it or not. These need to be seen, and this needs to also be done. That is, the documentation need to be prepared for the policy. Coming on to the definitions. The first definition is policy. What is a policy? Policy, it is a course of action by organization to convey instruction from management to those who perform duties. So we can say that policies are made by the organization law. Policies are organization laws. That is, these people make the policy. Now, this is an action that is used by organization. The organization is making the policy, the set of rules, so that they can convey the instruction. That is what the employee needs to follow. These are the set of rules that the management is telling to the employee via making use of a policy. Then the next point is standard. Standard, it is a more detailed statement of what must be done to comply with policy. As I've told you that what needs to be done, the operations will be stored within the standard. Policy is just going to be a statement that this needs to be done. Whereas what are the different operations, how it is done, that is stored within the standard. So it is a more detailed statement. You can say that this is following a level of granularity. First you've got less detail, then you're going to add more detail to it. Then the next practices procedures and guidelines, they effectively explain how to comply with policy. That is, when you know that what is the detailed structure, how it needs to be implemented, that is going to tell you that these all are being effectively in place. It is complying with the policy means, that all the employees have agreed to comply with the policy that they are going to implement it. The next point is, for a policy to be effective, it must be properly disseminated. Now, what does dissemination mean? Dissemination means that here all the policies, they need to be readily available, and you are taking your reviews from the employees also. From now, dissemination here, it is also going to include that as all the employees need to have the proper information of a policy. You need to have them as a hard copy. They need to be emailed to every people. So that is your disseminated. It should be properly disseminated. Should be properly demonstrated. It should properly demonstrated that a specific policy is readily available. To make it available, you're going to make hard copy printouts, and also you can email them. Now, a few examples for policies can be, you can have different policies. The examples for the policies: you can have a healthcare policy, tax policies are there, or the different government policies. Then gun control policies that need to be followed. So these are the few definitions. Now, coming onto this diagram, this is going to show you the hierarchy for policies, standards, and practices. Now, a policy is sanctioned by the senior management. The senior management here, you can say that the organization is going to make the policies. The next one is standards. Standards are built upon sound policies and can carry the weight of the policy. It is going to tell you the operations of a policy, how it need to be implemented. That is how software works or equipment works. That is going to be told with by your standards. Within your standards, this can be stored within the user manuals or the standard manuals, sorry, the system manuals. So here you can see that policies drive the standards. Then the next one is practices, procedures, and guidelines. They have an included detailed steps required to meet your requirement of standards. Here you can say that this is your levels of granularity. Granularity is your level of detail, how much detail you're giving. First, it is just a statement. Then you're adding more definition to it. That is how they need to be implemented, what are the operations. Then you've got more details about how you're going to follow each of them within this practice. What are the different, how you're going to implement it for us, for a specific scenario, how you're going to implement it for this type of scenario, how you're going to implement it. So here you can see that policies drive standards, and the standards drive the different practices, procedures, and guidelines. So these are your policy, standards, and practices. Now, a management, they are defined three different types of security policies. That is according to the National Institute of Standard and Technology. So the three different policies that we'll be seeing will be enterprise information security policy, then issue specific security policy, and system specific security policy. So these are going to be the three policies that we'll be studying by the next class. Thank you.